Welcome to Teen Up, a podcast that digs deeper into the thoughts of teenagers' mind about the wonders of the world.
If you're new here, I'm your host, Isabella.
And I'm Glenn. If you're not, welcome back.
Here is a quick disclaimer. We are two teenagers that are doing our best to research everything. However, we are not experts, so if we offend anyone or say something wrong, we want to apologize in advance. Please email us to tell us what was wrong. Thank you. Hi, Alex. Welcome to Teen Up.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, Isabella. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're happy to meet you again.
So today we have Alex from Do I Need School to Be? Alex, why don't you just introduce your podcast and tell us what you do and what is it about?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Alex. My podcast is called, like Isabella said, Do I Need School to Be? And I interview people in creative endeavors or creative jobs or just creative anything. And I ask them about what their journey was to get there, to what their education was. I think that a lot of podcasts focus on people who have already made it, people who are at an unreachable level of achievement for many of us. And then there's also a question like, how did they get there? What was their path? And the goal of the show is to show that there are different ways to achieve stuff. You don't have to just go to university. It's not just getting a mentor. We're all diverse people with diverse experiences, with diverse neural functions. So there's a path for everybody, and that's what I want to say with the show, that all paths are valid. So that's what I do in the show, just interview people like yourselves. You have been on my show, which was super fun. I loved that episode. It was really entertaining.
Yeah, we really loved it too.
So excited. I'm looking at the corner smiling because it was so happy. I'm so happy that you guys enjoyed it.
So there are a lot of different topics on your show. You invited a lot of people on your podcast to talk about, well, honestly, a lot of different things that they work in. Like, I've seen you have interviewed photographers, other podcasters, and designers, I think.
Yes, as well as musicians, plumbers, a lot of people, yeah.
People from different vocations. So why did you start your podcast?
I started it because I had questions myself. I'm a designer by trade, and I'm a graphic designer and a service designer, which is really fun. But every time that I talk to people that were not in the design field, they would say, "Oh, so you went to school for drawing?" Thinking that graphic design is just drawing, which is not. It's much more than that. But if you're not in the field, you might not know that. And yeah, I had all these questions myself, seeing like extremely talented designers who never went to school, or people who have PhDs, master's degrees in a particular field. And I always had that question myself, was do musicians just wake up with songs in their head? Is YouTube the only path today to becoming famous? Like, how do podcasters learn what they do? It came from questions that were asked of me, and then the questions that I was asking myself to other people. And I thought, okay, if I have this question, then others have it as well, probably. And yeah, let's make a show and see what happens. It might sound selfish, but in a way, it was just me satisfying my own curiosity.
Yeah, I think it's very, very typical for podcasters to, start their podcast because they want to share their journey on finding something. Just like you said, you want to ask these questions yourself. So you think that other people might have the same questions. So you bring, people from different parts of the world and explore these questions together.
Yeah, and then the show really just goes off the rails. Like, sometimes we explore NFTs, or we talk about what their journey was into design or ancestral knowledge compared to formal knowledge, or people who just say, I messed up a bunch of times and this is how I learned it. And it's about that. It's exploring all these paths. And it's not as much focus on what people are doing in this moment. It's more focused on how they got there, what their steps were, what things influenced them, and what changed them.
Mm-hmm. I think this is super helpful for people who actually want to, do the job that you interviewed the person to be. And it really gives a lot of insights, like the process like these people aren't who they are without all these process, right? And it's really showing people the insights, and it could be really helpful to some people.
That is really my goal, and the reason that I look for such diverse guests. I keep thinking there is somebody around the world that says, I always wanted to be a photographer, but I don't know how. I don't know if I can, and I don't know if I'm too young or if I'm too old or if I have never touched a camera before. Can I be a photographer? And that they will go to my podcast and see like, oh, there's a photographer here, Sarah Toole. What did she do? And turns out that Sarah wasn't, even though she always liked photography, it wasn't her job until she was in her late 30s. That's when she actually started with photography, and she didn't go to university for photography as many people do. She learned it on her own and experimenting and finding mentors. So there are so many journeys. And if that person exists that they're looking for answers, I hope to create this archive for them, that they will just find an answer somewhere.
I really do like that. The following question is, I think you've also answered this in some way. Like, what do you think your influences are so far?
My influences. There's so many. There was this, like, other podcasts, like I really like listening to, like, I'm a person that has a podcast, but also I listen to a lot of podcasts. There was one called the Quickie Podcast, which if they're not making anymore, they change it to the Print Design Academy podcast. But if you listen to the Quickie Podcast, you'll find a lot of similarities with my show, like always asking the same questions. And the format is very similar, so I was very inspired by them and their format. And then I'm really inspired by podcasts that are very funny and go off the rails, and they're not very formal. Like, it's a chill environment. I'm inspired in my design field, I'm inspired by people like Cass Holman. I'm inspired by Owais Haji, with actually somebody that I have on my podcast. And yeah, I'm just inspired by people who are just themselves and don't take themselves too seriously,
I think that is so great.
Yeah, it's weird. I had a podcast interview a couple of days ago with a guest that I will not say yet who it is. That listen to the podcast, figure out who that is. And we were talking about how, like, some conversations are just very organic, like the one we're having now. It's just like talk and see where the conversation leads. And I think you get that with smaller podcasters. I'm very inspired by smaller podcasts, smaller shows. When you interview guests like that are super big, like Christo, for example. Christo is, I wouldn't say he's a genius. I would say he's very experienced in the design field, very well respected. So he has already like those answers. He has a list of answers that he has. And you can almost expect what he's going to say if you had heard him speak a couple of times. And I like those, but I'm not inspired by those. I'm not inspired by pre-recorded, pre-written answers. I am more inspired by organic conversations. So I think that would be a key inspiration for me.
Yeah, I think what you said was very true. Like how sometimes the best ideas come from a very spontaneous conversation between people. And I think like you said, like smaller podcasters or people who don't speak in public that much would have a more organic conversation with others, because these very famous people, they must have been like asked these questions hundreds of times, and every time they're interviewed, they couldn't be like, oh, I decide to say this today and the other thing tomorrow, because people would scrutinize them and then like put them under a lens and say, oh, why did you change your opinion, or stuff like that. I actually have this thought that sometimes like when I really like a movie, say okay, so movie recommendation, recently Everything Everywhere All at Once is absolutely amazing. Everybody should watch that. Okay, so I was watching a few interviews of the directors, and I feel like they are more or less the same. Like every interview is more or less the same because they're like saying the same thing. So I just feel like they have a prepared question. I just wanted to add on to what Alex was saying over there. So I guess you also kind of answered this already, but what is your favorite thing about making a podcast?
Having an excuse to talk to people, like having it's just an excuse to talk to people. So one of my future guests, actually, the reason I'm interviewing him, it's because I love his products. It's a company called Paper Republic, and they make fine leather goods like notebooks. And this is so embarrassing, but you know how you know how sometimes significant others have key places they know their partners are gonna like. So it's like, I know my girlfriend likes stuff from this bakery, so I'm gonna go get it for her. I know my boyfriend likes this brand of clothes, so I'm gonna get him something from this brand. This brand, Paper Republic, is that for me. My boyfriend knows that if my birthday comes and he doesn't know what to get me, he can get me something from them and I will love it. So I love the brand. I'm crazy about it. And I thought, could I interview the owner of the brand? And having a podcast is the perfect excuse. You just go and say, hey, Jerome, so I have a podcast. I would love to interview you. And yeah, I just get to ask him all those questions. And I think that's my favorite thing about it. Just getting to sit down with people and just ask them questions and go deep down in their story. And it's not just with him because I like his products. It's with, like, people who are my friends. Like, one of the guests that I interviewed, it's Chris Yankov, who is my friend in real life. Like, we hang out in real life separately. But just sitting down and asking him deeper questions that I wouldn't have had a problem asking him in real life or outside of the podcast. But just like recording it and putting it on audio, it creates a different setting. It just gives me an excuse to go deeper into people's stories, which is something that I personally really enjoy. And yeah, it just gives me an excuse to interact with people and to talk to them and maybe give them a little bit of a spotlight. But aside from that, I really like editing. Like, editing is fun. Going through those little scraps. It's like, oh, the volume is too low here. The volume is too high here. I really enjoy it for some reason.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. I like your answer. It was really nice. I do find podcast a really great excuse to talk to a lot of people and really connect with a lot of different people from all over the world. It's great. This is like a side question. I just wanted to ask, like, do you have a favorite episode or for your own podcast?
Of my podcast, that's a good question. I think one of my favorite ones has to be episode when I talked to one of my teachers, actually, to one of my teachers, Ginger Cones. And I am not saying this because she's the one evaluating my thesis. I like her regardless. I like her regardless. Because it was really revealing to me, and it was like, maybe society telling me that I'm not a good student because I'm a creative person, but she's somebody that has a PhD. I put her on this gigantic pedestal of, oh my God, Ginger is so smart. She's such an amazing lecturer. Her work has influenced me in this many ways. And in that interview, we got to talk about what she was like as a student. And she talked about how when she was in school, she had a time that she was struggling. And her teacher called her mom up for a meeting. And in the meeting, she told the mom, it's not that Ginger is stupid. I could accept that. It's the fact that she could do better and she doesn't. And I thought, are you telling me that there was a point in time that you were struggling in school just because? I thought it was so humanizing and so humbling. And that moment of realization of this person I have put on a pedestal is actually a human too. It was just really refreshing, and I don't know, give a good closing and gave me deeper insight into our relationship. Like I said, she's my research tutor right now. So it changed the way that I saw her as a person. So that's why I would say that's my favorite episode. I love them all. It's like your children, you love them all, but then there's one that you're really proud of. I think that would be that one.
Well, I think that answer is amazing. It's truly a different point of view when you talk to people about these things and learn more about them.
And I think it colors your experiences with them, and it gives them more color. It gives them, I think it's kind of like looking at a painting, and then when you understand more of how it was made, like, you're mesmerized by it. Or when you watch an amazing movie and then you hear the director talking, like Glenn was saying. So you watch a movie, you think it's great, but then you hear an interview with the director and you're like, oh my God, that's why they did that. So that's intentional. That cool thing that I thought was cool was actually has some thinking on it. It's like finding those little Easter eggs, and then you're like, oh, every person has an Easter egg, has Easter eggs about their life and what shaped them. And when you learn it, they just become this rounder, more fuller character in your life. And that's always fun.
Like that person just becomes more dynamic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Moving on to this next question. What are some difficulties you have gone through while doing the podcast?
The will to continue. Doing a podcast is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's honestly, sometimes I wonder, why do I do this to myself? It's doing a hard thing. Like podcasting is a hard thing. It feels like going to the gym. It's maybe that's a bad example. Maybe it's a good example too. It's a hard thing. It's not easy. It's not, some people make it easy. They just like press record and just record themselves to the phone and then just upload it. That's great. That's beautiful. That works for them. That's fine. It's not the standard that I measure myself under. So and it sometimes feels futile. Sometimes it feels that I'm just screaming into the void and then the void is not screaming back. And it's really upsetting. And in those times, what I do is I think to myself, I interviewed somebody. Somebody gave me some of their time. Somebody sat like we're sitting right now. Somebody sat with me to talk to me, and we had an interaction with the hopes that that interaction will become public. That's what I do it. It's in those moments that I say like, oh, why am I doing this to myself? I keep going back that if for nobody else, I'm doing it for my guest, because my guests gave me their time and I want that time to produce something for them. And then if just one person listens to that episode and says like, oh, this resonated with me in this and this and this way, then that's amazing. But yeah, it's the will to continue sometimes because it's hard. It's hard work. Like it takes time to put out an episode. Even if you have all the systems in place, it will still take time and it will be hard. But yeah, if I use the gym analogy, it's that thing that you have to, like, I do CrossFit, so I have to wake up early and I do it at 7 a.m. So I wake up early. I hate myself during the entire thing, but then I finish it and I'm like, oh, I did this very hard thing and I feel satisfied right now because I did it. And even if I did a horrible job, even if the episode is like, I had an episode once in which I forgot to hit record on I didn't forgot to hit record. I forgot to link the right microphone to the computer. So my entire audio was full of echo, super scratchy. So in my mind, that episode was terrible, but I still like edited, I put it out, and the person who I made it for really liked it. So it's just that. It's just like accepting that it is what it's going to be. And some things are not controllable. And that even if it's hard, it's worth doing because at least one person cares. That was a very, very roundabout answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's actually very inspiring. Like I find podcasts a very I was actually just talking to Glenn about like, oh my gosh, this is really burning me out sometimes. But hearing you say this, I think yeah, I'm gonna try to. I think podcasts really does bring some people joy, like some people who listen to this, and I think there are always reasons to continue, and this is probably one of the best answers.
If somebody gets a giggle out of it, I don't know. I interviewed this guy recently. I think it was like 2 episodes ago, Dan Elliott, and the interview is very funny. And I keep thinking, okay, if he shared it with his friends and his friends got a giggle out of hearing him being interviewed, then that's great. Then somebody had a giggle. That's also valuable.
And just a side note, Isabella also linked up the wrong microphone once.
It's a human mistake. It's a human mistake. I interviewed this guy named Anand, who is an award-winning podcaster, and he told me like, I have linked up the wrong mic. I have forgotten to hit record. I have had terrible internet connection and the call comes in and out. And I've had episodes that I just didn't publish because the audio was terrible. So it happens. It's part of the journey. If nothing else, yeah. Again, somebody had a giggle out of it. Maybe not you because you're traumatized by linking the wrong microphone, but someone else had a giggle. Like we had a giggle about it now. So it's an experience.
Yeah. So, tell us about you. What do you do? What are your interests, or anything you want to say about yourself?
Me as a human. I just learned this year that I like cats, which is fun. No, just kidding. Well, I'm a human being living on Earth. I live in the Netherlands. I am originally from Latin America, and I am one of those weird people that have three citizenships because of my migratory journey. Um, yeah, I'm a graphic designer, so I'm right now finishing my second degree. I did a technical degree as a graphic designer, and then I worked for a year and a half. And then when I became a German citizen, I said, you know what? I need more. I need more education. So I am one of those people who decided for formal education. And I started my bachelor's degree when I was 26. And that's what I'm finishing now. I'm actually in the thesis writing process now, which is stressing me the hell out. So I'm one of those people that decided to go later into education. And I think sadly, there's a lot of people who say, oh my God, when I finish this degree, I'm going to be like 30 or 35 or 40. I cannot start a degree again. But I am the example that you can. And if you finish it, it's not, you're going to get older anyways. You're going to turn 30, 40, 50 anyways. If use that time to do what you want to do, pursue what you want to pursue. And yeah, was it slightly traumatizing at times? Yes, but like I once had a teacher who was younger than me, and that was kind of
Oh, wow.
weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. It was like, oh yeah, I'm 24 and I just finished my master's degree, and I just thought, okay, I'm such a loser. But we all have different knowledge. And what I was gonna say about myself, I am an auditory learner. So I am a person that learns through, even though I'm a designer, which is very visual, I'm an auditory learner. I really benefit from talking to people one on one, or from lectures, from podcasts, from listening to a video, not watching as much from listening to it. It really helps me process information better, which is why I love podcasting. And that has influenced my design practice in the sense that I am somebody who likes to design practical things. If you look into design, there are several branches of design, many of them. Then there are also different ways of designing. Some people have no problem spending 6 months designing this beautiful book with gold trim that talks about nothingness. I am not that person.
Mm-hmm.
I like designing things that are practical, usable, and that serve a purpose. For example, right now, my thesis project and something that I want to realize in the future is a learning aid to help children talk about their emotions in the classroom. And I'm not a teacher. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not any of those things. I'm a designer. So a huge part of my process was talking to people, talking to teachers and mental health professionals and parents and kids, and just having conversations in which I could pull out knowledge that helped influence my design decisions. That's the way that I work. That's not the way everybody works. But yeah, it comes from the fact that, again, I like having conversations and having organic conversations, like we said before, and just learning from people. And the last thing I would say is, like, I am a very curious person. I'm gonna dive into Wikipedia and end up 25 pages away from where I started, just because it's, oh, curious about this, curious about that. That's interesting. That's fun. Huh, that I should not have clicked there. Go back and just click all around. And yeah, it's just being a curious human being.
That's honestly, wow. Every time you answer a question, it's so inspiring. I honestly find your answers, yeah, all very inspiring and very interesting. Oh, I just wanted to ask, why did you want to learn about graphic design?
That's a journey. So I was always interested in design. I was like drawing. I was like art. I remember being fascinated by children's books that I had, or by this. My mom would buy us like children's encyclopedias, being fascinated by the illustrations, by how it was made. I loved this one book when I was little, called Brown Bear by Eric Carle. Just the way it was illustrated and made, I found it fascinating. And so I was always interested in it, but pursuing design in Latin America was not a feasible option, in the sense that it's not something that is high regarded or anything in Latin America. And then through twist of fate, I ended up in Europe, in Germany, but I had already decided that I was going to be an engineer. Like my dad is engineering like your father. And funny enough, in Germany, they don't recognize high school degrees from other countries. So you have to do high school again 1 year. And I failed miserably because I thought I was smarter than other people and I didn't need to study. And also I had very little interest in what I was studying, which was engineering. I was doing it because I had to, not because I wanted to. And when I failed out of that, I was very lost. I didn't know where to go. It was 18, 19, and I didn't know what to do anymore. My perfectly drawn life plan was suddenly interrupted by somebody telling me no. So I was in a bit of a depression, and my sister told me I want to leave mom and dad's house because my social life is hurting. I want to move to the city center. My sister was a year older than me, and she was already in university. So we happened to find an apartment that was across the street from my graphic design school. And I thought, okay, I've always liked this. I could do this for like a year and yeah, just do this for a year and see what happens. And then I can figure out another plan, but at least I'm not doing any, I'm not just playing with my fingers sitting in the dark as I was before. And that 1 year air quotes plan became a 3.5 year and I graduated from that. Yeah. Twist of
Well,
fate.
yeah, that was a lot of twists. But I mean, it came out to be a great story, and you love what you're doing right now, right?
Yeah, I love it. It's like the reason I decided to study it again was because I wanted to learn more about it. And I got very lucky that my first degree was very technical and my second one was very artistic. So they
Mm-hmm.
complemented both very, very well. And in the first one, I was learning this how you make a flyer, this is how you make a book. In the second one, I was learning what is a flyer, what is a book, what is reality. So they matched up really well. So it wasn't like I was repeating what I learned before. I was learning it at another level. And yeah, I love design. I think it's really like everything. It's gonna sound so cliche, but everything is design. Like even the receipt you get when you buy something at a store, that was designed by a human being. That is graphic design and ranges from books to publications to the visual assets you use when you make a podcast. Everything has an element of somebody thought about it. And I like learning how that was made, why that was made, and how to make stuff myself.
Speaking of books and design, I actually it's just something funny that I thought of. It's like I was watching Seinfeld the other day, and then there was like this skit about how Kramer wants to make a coffee table book with four legs. So it's gonna be like a coffee table book on top of a coffee table.
And the book is about coffee tables. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I understand that right now you're writing your thesis, but what are your plans for the future, like the podcast or for yourself?
I definitely want to keep the podcast going as a creative endeavor because we all need like creative things that nobody else can control. And so after I finish my thesis, I would really like to like devote at least 6 months to trying to bring the product that I'm making for my thesis to market. And that's because I have like from the teachers that I've interviewed, the parents, they'll think it's very useful. They'll think it's very interesting. Other designers, like the elements that come in, they think are very interesting. So I really would like to do that. If not, I would like to work for companies that do service design, which is helping businesses and people figure out what they need to make to solve a problem. And that may sound very random, but it's, for example, when I was since my education is not just graphic design, it's design in general. It's, for example, how do you design a poster for people who are blind? Because only less than 15% of people who are blind are actually completely blind. 85% have some vision. So how do you design for that? And how do you, if you have a school that has the problem that they cannot afford to buy new books every year, so the books are out of date, what is the creative solution for that? Maybe the books need to be made digital. What digital elements already exist that are at their reach, even if they're low income? How can my project right now, it's like, how can you help children in the classroom setting actually communicate their emotions better? How can you help people with low income share the knowledge or communicate and stuff like that? So I would like to work with people that do stuff like that, and there are a few design agencies that focus on that. And yeah, just see what comes next. Is one thing that life has taught me is that any plans that I might have might be scraped away by an international move from some reason. So yeah, just finding things that I'm passionate and curious about, and then just go forth with them.
So you have a lot of projects that you're working on right now. Do you have like any more projects that you work on the side that you want to share with us? Or, anything like that?
Well, I have that. I also want to do a research project about burnout. That's a future plan, because I don't know if you guys have heard this, but in my cult, in Latin American culture at least, we see burnout as a thing for white people. It's a weakness. It's if you get a burnout, that's a sign of weakness, and that doesn't happen to poor people, or that happens to people who are extremely privileged and they're just weak. I don't think that's true. I think there's a reason for that. I think there's a reason why you see it more in high privilege positions and then not experienced position. And I want to do research on that. So, and I was thinking, okay, maybe as a card game or maybe as an intervention or something. So I want to do research on that and make a project about it. I also would like to create a way to measure how hospitals affect people. A gigantic project of mine. I would like to fix the airport in Mexico City because it's incredibly inaccessible and it irks the life out of me. But yeah, I just have a lot of projects and big dreams. So here I am with my big dreams.
No, those sounds absolutely great, because it sounds like you really do have a plan for your future, and I believe that you're able to make these happen. And you sound like a person with big dreams, and you're willing to really make those happen. And like the job you said that you wanted to work for, I think that is very helpful to the society, and I think you're really contributing like a lot of your time and work for the society, and I just think that is very inspiring and great.
And I was like especially interested by the thing that you said you want to improve the airport in Mexico City. Because I've seen like videos on YouTube talking about how designers improved LaGuardia in New York City, and how they design a terminal that is more efficient and that can, hold more people with the same area that they had before, or they are just like working on a old terminal and turn it into something that is more efficient, um, whether it's time or energy. Um, and I think as you as a designer, like, I mean, it's probably not exactly like graphic design, but you as a designer, I mean, it's really what you do, to improve things and work on things that can improve other people's life. And just like you said, that's like practical and, that can actually make an impact.
And that is really my goal. So when it comes to like for the product that I'm making for my thesis, I don't know. I think a lot of people like design things and make things and they have the wrong idea. It's I want to design an app and get 1 million downloads, for example. That's all fine and great. That's not the way that I work with the tool, the learning aid that I'm making. I just keep thinking, if I can help one kid understand themselves better, if I can help one mom from an autistic child understand what their child is feeling in that moment, that's great. It's just focusing on that one person whose journey through life I can make just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit easier in a
Mhm.
particular moment, because life is made out of moments. Life it's I was reading this book by Daniel Sloss. It's a comedian. I can only recommend his stand up. It's amazing. And he's like closing the book saying that sometimes we always think about the future, or always like worry about the past. What we have is now. We have an infinite number of nows in our lives. And I just keep thinking, okay, what can I do? What can I make? What can I design that can help somebody's now, not their today, just even if it's for a little moment. And maybe that will be making a signal system that will make going through the airport easier for them, just in a graphic way. Maybe it would be a beautiful flyer that they find through it, an event or a corporation or a group of people that will make them feel more welcome in the world. Maybe it's going to be making sure that a book is readable for people who have a visual impairment, or maybe we'll be making a podcast that can help somebody find their journey through life. It's all about thinking like how I'm not going to cure cancer. Clearly, I am not going to stop global warming, but if I can make somebody's now a little bit better, then I'm going to try my best to do it. Because if there's one, there's two. If there's two, there's four. If there's four, there's eight. So it has a ripple effect and it expands.
I like your philosophy a lot. Yeah, a lot of people out there are just trying to like hit the numbers, like, like 1 million likes, or, trying to think about like the bigger things, but you're focusing on like the small moments, the small things. And even though it's not like noticeable, it's not something that everyone is going to find out about, you're still making some type of difference. And even if it's just one person, maybe that person feels like that is the most important thing. So I think what you have and what you think is really great.
Thank you. And it might be nice, like that way that I see it. It's, I don't know, everybody affects a lot of people. Like we're all connected somehow. If I am having a terrible day and I am nippy to somebody else, I am going to have these negative effect on them, and they might get nippy with somebody else, and then they might get aggressive, it expands. The other day I was in the elevator going to my mom's house, and this dude got on the elevator and he was going, like I was going to the 17th floor and he was going to the second floor, and he just looked at me and said, I know I should take the stairs, I am so lazy. And I just looked at him and said, I think we should all avoid fatigue. Sometimes you should just avoid fatigue. And he started laughing and he said, I'm going to steal that. That is so good. You made my day. And that's the effect. He was feeling crappy about himself, about making the choice of taking the elevator instead of the stairs. But I just made him laugh. Just improved his day in a way. And I don't know, maybe that made him like tell the joke to his wife or to his husband or to his kid or to his dog, and that made that day better for more than just one person, just because I made a silly comment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's having that impact, and I think people should be more aware of the impact they have on other people.
Wow, that's right. I can only agree. Like, wow. I feel like now I can make some impact too. Like, I don't know. Sounds great.
Yeah, do it. You can. We can all have an impact.
Yeah. Well, I guess this brings an end to our episode today. Is there anything you'd like to share with our audience today?
If I can recommend a book, and if I may recommend a book,
yes,
I would recommend Daniel Sloss's book, because I just finished it and it really like I did the audiobook and I finished it in 2 days. I mean, that's how in it I was. I really enjoyed it. I really recommend the audiobook because he's a stand-up comedian. So if you get the chance to listen to him read it out loud, it's hilarious. It's called Everybody You Hate Is Going to Die and Other Comforting Thoughts. And it's just very comedic and funny. And it's by Daniel Sloss. And then if I can just reference again my podcast, Do I Need School to Be, that I'm sure is going to be linked in the show notes of this episode. And yeah, just go check it out. And if anybody has, and if you, and just telling your audience that if there's an interview you wish was there and it's not there, just reach out to me and I will do my very best to find somebody that can to ask the questions that you want to ask.
Well, that is great. Thank you for being here with us. We loved it. We love having you here.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
Well, thank you for being here.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel.
Also, comment down below if you have any thoughts. You could click on the bell to get notified when we upload a new video as well.
Thank you and bye.